Borders look clean on a map. Thin lines, neat colors, names in tidy fonts. But in real life, borders are rarely lines, they're scars. And Europe is a continent covered in them. For centuries, borders here didn't just mark where one country ended and another began. They marked where armies met. And then something happened that should be impossible. Europe tried to make borders less deadly, not by deleting them, but by changing what they mean. So here's the question I want you to sit with today. Why do we need borders? And what happens when we decide that borders should stop being battle lines and become seams? If you zoom out on human history, the pattern is brutal and repetitive. Groups form, they compete, they fight, they make treaties, they break them, and the borders move again. Now, people love to argue about why wars happen. Resources, ideology, fear, pride, old wounds, new ambitions. But here's the uncomfortable truth. War is not a glitch in the system. For most of history, war was the system. And Europe, especially, became the place where power politics went. Professional. So when we talk about the European project, about unions like the EU, we're not talking about a nice idea. We're talking about a counter-technology device built to fight the default setting of human civilization. After World War II, Europe was exhausted, not just physically, morally, psychologically, spiritually. And the big question wasn't, how do we rebuild? It was, how do we stop doing this to ourselves again? In 1950, a radical proposal emerged: pool coal and steel production, the industries that build weapons, so that the countries most likely to fight each other would become economically interlocked. In the words tied to the Schuman Declaration, the goal was to make war between historic rivals, especially France and Germany, not merely unthinkable, but materially impossible. That's not poetry, that's engineering. Not let's all be friends, but let's build a system where war becomes self-sabotage. This became the early spine of European integration, including the European coal and steel community, an early step on the road that eventually led to today's SU. Here's something we rarely admit. Peace isn't a feeling. Peace is infrastructure. It's laws, institutions, courts, procedures, boring things that prevent exciting disasters. A strong union doesn't remove conflict. It changes the shape of conflict. It takes the energy that used to become violence and forces it into negotiation. And yes, that means paperwork, a lot of paperwork. But that's the point, because the alternative to too much bureaucracy is often too much blood. Now let's talk power. In the 21st century, the world is shaped by superpowers, giant markets, and unstable global shocks. A small country alone can be brilliant, proud, culturally rich, and still be vulnerable. Because global systems don't negotiate with poetry. They negotiate with leverage. Leverage looks like market size, supply chain control, shared standards, bargaining power, collective resilience. This is the harsh reality. In a world of giants, being alone can mean being relevant. And irrelevance is not peaceful. It's exploitable. So unions aren't just moral projects. They're survival strategies. Most people don't feel geopolitics. They feel life. Can I study abroad? Can I work across the border? Can I trade without getting crushed by friction and paperwork? Can I live in a system where rules are predictable? The EU's single market, established in 1993 EMS, to enable the free movement of goods, services, people, and capital, often called the Four Freedoms. That's not just economics. It's a daily reduction of fear. Because when your neighbor is also your customer, your coworker, your research partner, your family, war stops looking like strategy. War starts looking like insanity. Also, the single market has grown from 12 to 27 EU countries over time. Here's a weird fact about power. Sometimes the strongest weapon isn't an army. It's a standard. If you set the rules for safety, privacy, medicine, scientific research, food quality, you shape reality. You, Dan T, have to dominate people with force if the world voluntarily adopts your framework because it's stable. This is what cooperation can produce. A zone where rules are high quality, predictable, and enforced. Not perfect. Not always fast, but consistent. And consistency is what lets science, innovation, and human rights actually function. Human rights are not natural. They're not guaranteed by physics. They're agreements, enforced by institutions, protected by culture, and they can decay if you stop maintaining them. This is one reason the European project mattered historically. It connected peace to democracy and rights. In 2012, the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded to the European Union for, quote, over 6 decades contributing to the advancement of peace and reconciliation, democracy and human rights in Europe. Now, you can disagree with parts of the EU, you can criticize decisions, you can hate the bureaucracy. But the existence of a multinational structure that tries to lock peace and rights together, that matters, because rights don't survive on hope. They survive on systems. Now let's be real. Unions create friction. People feel loss of control. They fear decisions made far away. They worry about bureaucracy, inefficiency, and one size fits. So rules. Some of these criticisms are valid. A union is slow because compromise is slow. A union is complex because reality is complex. A union can feel distant because scale creates distance. But here's the counter question. If you hate compromise, what do you do instead? Because the alternative to compromise isn't everyone gets exactly what they want. The alternative is usually the strongest decides, or the loudest, or the richest, or the one with the most leverage. So the question becomes, do you want decisions made far away by institutions you can influence, or decisions made far away by forces you can't even vote against? So why do we need borders? At their best, borders do 3 things. They create accountability. Who is responsible for what? They create protection, laws, rights, safety nets, language, culture, belonging. But at their worst, borders become excuses for fear, for dehumanization, for violence. So maybe the problem isn't borders. Maybe the problem is what we use borders for. Imagine borders as cell membranes. They separate, yes, but they also allow exchange. They keep a system alive by controlling flow, not by stopping it. And that's the core idea behind supranational unions. You don't erase identity. You don't delete nations. You build a higher layer, a shared roof so disagreements don't become wars. Here's the claustrophobic truth. We don't get a second continent. We don't get a second timeline where we see what happens if we try nationalism again and hope it magically stays peaceful. We live in one world with climate risk, economic shocks, global competition, information warfare, migration pressures, and technological disruption. If small countries face these alone, they're easier to break. If they face them together, they become harder to intimidate. So cooperation is not weakness. Cooperation is civilization. The most inspiring part is this. A union is a promise that history doesn't have to repeat. That humans can build a machine that turns conflict into conversation. Messy conversation. Slow conversation. But conversation. So why do we need borders? Do we need them so we can define who we are? But maybe we also need unions, so we dare to destroy each other over where the lines are drawn. And if the European project is anything, it's a question posed to the entire human species. Can we stay different without becoming enemies? Because the future won't ask whether we were proud. It will ask whether we were wise. So I'll leave you with this. If peace is built, not found, what are you doing to maintain it?